Hello there. It's been a while since you've heard from me, but as you can tell, the surrounding environment I'm in is quite different than what you're used to, as I am currently housed. I have a home now, which is quite a good thing. I know a lot of you were quite worried about me when I went radio silent, but that was for a very important and, in fact, healing reason. In addition to being entirely clean of drugs now, I am also hopped up on Psych Meds, the very first that have worked for me. They put me on Wellbutrin and lithium, two medications I had never tried before. Apparently, lithium, due to the fact that prescribers don't get a kickback when they from like a big company when they prescribe it, it's rarely prescribed in the United States for people who deal with psychosis, like myself. But the actual process for getting on that medication was quite an arduous and idiosyncratic one, to say the least. I was on a bus to my home, during which I experienced a psychotic break. I had believed that federal agents had been working with the bus driver and busing company to enact a intercontinental government, global government conspiracy against me to frame me for multiple crimes. I had started confusing dreams I was having for reality, falling asleep randomly, experiencing these very vivid dreams that had called back to real context in my life, as well as previous dreams that I had years ago. And when I would awake, I would be seeing and hearing things that were not there. And awaking in not just a haze of hallucinatory vision and sound, but of great and surmounting paranoia. And so I was like confused as fuck. Like I was confused on a level that during any of the psychotic episodes I've had, I have never been that confused. Like, I was seeing people shift and morph and like be there in their entirety. I would talk on a phone to try and report them that I didn't really possess. I would hear my name being called out from people who were not really speaking it, accusing me of things, and I would feel compelled to respond to such accusations, but instead opted to be quiet, as I thought that due to the fact that I was being filmed by these governmental organizations, that speaking would cause evidence to be made against me and would strengthen their frame-up job. And so what I ended up doing when I actually arrived at this bus station after experiencing a really like terrifying series of hallucinations, was I ran the fuck out of there. I booked it, and this was thinking that I was being followed. I kept seeing the exact same two cars trailing me again and again and again. Of course, the cars were not there, and it was at this point that after a short phone call with my mom, one that I apparently sounded very erratic during, I ended up taking a walk and going, I'm gonna walk into the street. I am going to get ran over by a car, because if I do that, I will not have to go to jail and get anally raped. This was literally my thought process. But then I had the wise idea that if I were to call the hospital, then perhaps I could be exonerated of whatever frame-up job was was being made against me. And through this, I call and I say that I'm hearing and seeing all of these things. They assess me as experiencing psychosis. I get in the ambulance, and I end up staying at a hospital for about 4 days until I'm transferred to a mental health hospital for something along the lines of 7 days. And it was in that inpatient facility that I really could not use my phone or any of my possessions. Everything was taken from me. But because it was a very good hospital where I could tell that the staff cared more about the people that they were taking care of than the money that they were making from the work that they were doing, I ended up receiving the adequate care that I needed, care that I could have never imagined getting in my previous admissions. And now, I'm on medications that thus far seem to have entirely eradicated my hallucinations and also make me a lot calmer, a lot less prone to bouts of depression, bouts of anger, crying spells, and the like. I've also noticed my libido has significantly improved, something I've struggled with throughout a lot of my life, which is pretty cool, given the fact that in the past, the antidepressants I had taken had made me a lot worse in that department. But in general, I feel as though a lot of things are just up. Not so up that I'm exceeding that therapeutic range, but up in the sense that the things that would often cloud my judgment have been dulled. They're more flat, more robotic. I can assess situations more rationally. And when I feel good things, they don't go up so much that I start falling into deep ambitions that are, sort of irrational given what I have at present, and then being led astray by all of these, disconnected paths that, it end up leading to me crashing once again in a extreme and miserable bout of depression, which is actually the diagnosis I've been given. They did not think I had borderline at that hospital, which made me pretty glad. PTSD sufficed as a diagnosis because PTSD can often present in ways that seem akin to borderline. But in addition to the PTSD I have, it's major depressive disorder with psychotic features, which sounds a hell of a lot better than schizoaffective or whatever they tried to label me as years ago, than whatever the hell, whatever the hell I got going on here is a lot better, and it makes a lot more sense than what I thought I had going on there. In addition to that, I was introduced to a new term, the bipolar spectrum, which also made all of this make a lot more sense. The idea that because my MDD presents with psychosis, it puts me on the bipolar spectrum because the symptoms are mood congruent. Like, that made so much more sense to me than having all of these things separate, and speaking of them as though they're disconnected from one another. And in general, it seemed as though a lot more newer ways of explaining mental health conditions were being applied to me, and new in a good way. A lot of these old, antiquated ways of explaining these issues or ways of treating these issues have failed me time and time again, causing me to be completely and utterly disillusioned with the system. But now I don't feel that way at all anymore. Now my meds are consistently working. I feel motivated, dare I say happy, um, content with this sort of 6 out of 10 that I'm riding out each day, happy to wake up in the morning, sleeping well. Um, and yeah, I'm getting things done. Um, I'm a productive member of society, and hopefully I'll continue on that. I don't expect this to be a silver bullet, nor do I expect changes to be super miraculous. That's not the point of these drugs. The point of these drugs is to have something consistently good. Um, but I'll tell you this, and this is a message of hope I'd like to leave with you. For those of you who are struggling to find the right medication for you, do not give up, and do not turn to street drugs in order to treat your issue. If I had read the fucking manual, as I had said in that video, some hard thinking on 3 years of junk not piled up, I would have never touched a single illicit drug, given the fact that I have mental health conditions and genetic predispositions to those kinds of issues with addiction and whatnot. Given the fact that those are like very relevant factors in my life, it should have been abundantly clear to me that this was a huge risk I was taking. There are some people who come out of it and agency really does triumph over whatever external extenuating factors are afflicting them. But in my case, it appeared as though I would always hit a wall with drugs where they seemed as though they lift me up until they ultimately broke me. And in that sense, my relation to them, at the very least, as of now, but I would rather like to stay away entirely, at the very least as of now, is inherently destructive. If I read the manual, I would have known that. I would have known not to touch that shit. And now, I'm not gonna touch that shit. I have way too many things to focus on as far as my future is concerned, as far as my life is concerned, and as far as the world around me is concerned. I want to be able to experience that with a clear head, and also to preserve what I have left of my head rather than burning holes in it ever so slightly, one by one. And so that's the message of hope I'll leave with you today. Stay clean. If you're experiencing issues like mine, it took me 4 years to find medications that are actually working, showing signs of working consistently. And while I'm open to the fact that things may go wrong in the journey forward, I am nonetheless meeting the journey forward with optimism. Skepticism and optimism, but optimism. And with that, welcome to the new Osaka crib. That's a thing. Yeah, I'll talk to you later.